search and rescue teams on site awaiting getting through this event. So, to the people of Eastern Kentucky, please be careful these next couple days. It appears weather wise, we will be out of the woods at least in the short and likely the medium term Wednesday night. But from noon today, which is just in about 30 minutes, through 8 p.m. on Wednesday, going to be some real concern for what we could see. All right, recapping yesterday, President Biden and First Lady Dr. Jill Biden visited Eastern Kentucky. They attended a briefing on flooding at Marie Roberts Elementary School in Lost Creek, one of those beacons of light in times of darkness. Gave an opportunity to see how our schools serve as temporary shelters, as distribution points, and as a safe place where people know that they can go. We met with volunteers right after the briefing. They were almost all educators that worked in that school. And then we did a neighborhood tour in Lost Creek itself. Two incredible families, extended families. One was standing on the foundation of where their house had been. This is the extended family that had lost two structures. These were 3 or 4 generations. This is the second. This was their house. And actually, their house is about 300 yards down, just totally destroyed. They just got done putting a garage on. I mean, maybe a week before, and trying to figure out how to dig out. It made it even more personal than it had been before. We heard a lot of good things out of the president and the FEMA administrator during the trip. As I'll talk about in a minute, we need to hear those things. We need more people accepted and fewer people denied by FEMA as we go forward. And the president, at least, was very direct in wanting to see the same. Anytime we've been through something tough where we're going to need the help of the federal government, the president showing up sends a strong, positive message. All right, we are still at 37 confirmed fatalities in 5 counties, but that will rise to 38 here soon with the lost Knott County high school student. As of today, the 37 break down 8 in Breathitt, 2 in Clay, 17 in Knott, 3 in Letcher, 7 in Perry. KSP reports there are still 2 missing persons in Breathitt. They've now put all the information out on the 2. They are Vanessa Baker, a 60-year-old female from the Lost Creek community. She is described as 5'7" tall, 5'7" tall, weighing approximately 215 pounds, and having dark-colored hair. Her last known location was at her residence in the area of Lower River Caney Road. Second is Nancy Cundiff, a 29-year-old female from the Lost Creek community. White female, 5'1", weighing approximately 280 pounds, having dark-colored hair. Her last known location, same general area, Lower River Caney Road. If you have information about either of these 2 individuals, please call Post 13, that's KSP Post and Hazard, at 606-435-6069. Here are the overall FEMA updates. 12 counties have been declared for individual assistance. That's more than many of us thought would ultimately become qualified. We're grateful for this. Breathitt, Clay, Floyd, Knott, Leslie, Letcher, Magoffin, Martin, Owsley, Perry, Pike, and Whitley counties. Obviously, that is only as good as the number of people that then get qualified and get FEMA assistance. 4 counties are eligible for direct temporary housing assistance. Those are FEMA programs, which include direct lease, multifamily lease and repair, and transportable temporary housing units. Those include Breathitt, Knott, Letcher, and Perry counties. Survivors in all 1A designated and all IA designated counties, those are all of those, can also apply for $500 in critical needs assistance. This gets dollars into people's hands in the short term. It can include life-saving and life-sustaining items like water, food, first aid, prescriptions, infant formula, diapers, consumable media supplies, durable medical equipment, personal hygiene items, and fuel for transportation. This has been up and running a couple days. 2,100 people have received the assistance, totaling a little over $1 million. And now, this happened over the weekend. There's a clean and sanitize program, which provides $300 per applicant in the IA counties. Fastest way to apply for that program is through disasterassistance.gov. You can also call the phone number 1 800 621 FEMA, 1 800 621 3362. There are also 7 mobile registration centers traveling through the affected counties, or 4 disaster recovery centers. So there's 7 mobile centers traveling into neighborhoods, helping to take pictures, helping with claims. And then the 4 disaster recovery centers, can we put those up, are in Knott, Clay, Perry, and Letcher. That's right. And let me just do a double check on these. Yes, Letcher's in their recreation center. Perry is in their community college. Clay is in Oneida Elementary, and Knott is at their sportsplex. It is really helpful, especially if you've been denied, to go talk to one of these people face to face. They have the power to open up your claim and to look at it. And if it's just things that are missing, that you can add it and hopefully get approved while you're there. There are still numerous cooling center stations open in the affected areas. Visit our flood resource page to get an updated list. Sheltering, we've got 197 people in emergency shelters. Those are the Red Cross and independent shelters. Most of those are congregate shelters. We are going to need to move those folks to a more stable and ultimately, in the midst of a pandemic, safe place. And then we have 315 people at our Kentucky State Parks, 182 in Jenny Wiley. I got to see them this weekend. 4 in Paintsville State Park, 3 in Pine Mountain State Resort Park, then 126 in Buckhorn Lake State Resort Park. Also got to travel there this weekend. See families. It's amazing. Between Transportation, Department of Water, and Kentucky Power that we got that up and running. We now have 77 travel trailers already in the area. 16 are ready for occupancy at Jenny Wiley State Park. 10 are already occupied. 12 are ready for occupancy at Mine Made in Knott County. 3 already occupied. 11 are ready for occupancy in a separate area in Knott County. 3 are occupied. And 4 at now Crockettsville Campground and Owsley. None of those are occupied yet. Getting people in travel trailers is going much faster than it did after the tornadoes. Individuals seeking emergency shelter can register at governor.ky.gov/flood resources. That's right here. Or we now have a number that you can call to register. That's 502-234-1225. We'll get that out in the release. We'll also put it up on social media. Well, some people don't have to dial 1 anymore. 502-234-1225. The National Guard, with the primary emergency assistance mission complete, we now have 190 service members on mission. They have delivered almost 38,000 cases of water, 37,500 plus meals. Debris removal. This is really moving forward. Once we get all of the private contractors up and running, people are going to see a huge difference very quickly. It does have to be done right to protect the counties and ultimately the folks that will benefit. Debris assessment will be conducted in affected areas through tomorrow. A process is in the works to identify and remove vehicles from the right-of-way. We have 20 crews doing debris removal right now. They are 2 in Letcher, 6 in Breathitt, 6 in Knott, and 6 in Perry. The Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund. This is our fully transparent, subject to legislative oversight, subject to audit. 100% of the proceeds will go to help these families. Now 29,837 donations. $4,667,623 has been donated. A big thank you to everybody who has been involved. I think we'll have some of our major donors, which we'll be able to announce. Certainly, the Kentucky Distillers Association, the largest donor to the Tornado Relief Fund, is doing another bourbon auction here to help. How do we spend it? Well, the first thing we do is pay for every funeral so that nobody has to go through a reimbursement process. They don't have to worry about this as they grieve the loss of their loved one. We've already sent out 29 funeral payments. Right now we're confirming 37, though it'll rise to 38 fatalities. Already sent out 29 funeral payments, so these families don't have to worry about it. On donations, monetary donations, whether it's to us or another fund, is what's really needed at the moment. Please do not donate clothing at this point. It's taking up so much space. It's pushing other things out of emergency shelters and distribution points. Every single group we've talked to says they do not need any additional clothing. Please focus on monetary donations through trusted funds. All right, a lot of great progress now on the infrastructure side. On power outages, we are now down 372. What? Oh, on power outages, we are now down to just 372 power outages. That is down from 25,000 at its height. And some of these, they have to cut off power as they are making improvements and or making repairs. So a huge amount of work has been done there. Drinking water. We're now down to 6,620 service connections without water. That means we had 969 restored in the last 24 hours. 30,857 service connections under a boiled water advisory. 8 water systems still under limited operations. On wastewater, now down to 5 wastewater systems not operational. That means we got 3 up online since yesterday, and 8 are under limited operations. A few other updates. Department of Community-Based Service issued 400 SNAP replacements, bringing the total number of food replacements to 2,093. The Federal Emergency Prescription Assistance Program has been activated to help uninsured Kentucky residents obtain certain prescription drug medications or durable medical equipment that was lost or damaged in the recent flooding. Under the program, Kentuckians with addresses in identified zip codes may request a 30-day supply of covered medications in the program. There are no charges. Visit our flood resource page if you are uninsured in these areas and need replacement of prescriptions or durable medical equipment. This could be really important to somebody's health. Transportation Cabinet is working to rapidly replace 11 bridges destroyed or heavily damaged in Perry, Knott, Pike, and Letcher counties. They're mostly at sites where the loss of the bridge left people with no motor vehicle access to their homes. We're using existing and emergency contracts so the work can be completed as soon as possible. First step will be to construct temporary crossings with large drain pipes and hard-packed road beds while survey and design teams begin work on steel and concrete structures. As we look at the future, certainly housing and private bridges are going to be 2 of our greatest challenges. Nobody has all the answers yet. We've got a lot of people working on it who want to do our very best for those that have been impacted. Disaster unemployment assistance. Knott and Perry County residents can receive in-person help with those applications at the following Disaster Recovery Center locations from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. In Knott County, it's at the Sportsplex. In Perry County, it's at the Community College. That's where FEMA and the Disaster Recovery Centers are that we already put up. I want to thank Governor John Bel Edwards and the Louisiana Workforce Commission, who has let us borrow their mobile workforce center. So the Kentucky Office of Unemployment Insurance is going to be on Saturday, traveled to Louisiana to pick up that motorhome. And it's going to be at Jenny Wiley State Park, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. today through Wednesday. Additional locations will be announced soon. As a reminder, residents in Breathitt, Clay, Floyd, Knott, Leslie, Letcher, Magoffin, Martin, Owsley, Perry, Pike, and Whitley counties. Those are all the individual assistance counties. can also file for disaster unemployment assistance online at kcc.ky.gov or call 502-875-0442. Application deadline is now September the 6th, so a lot of time to still file, but that's about a month away. So anybody who's going to need that, we're going to make sure that we can get them that information. Department of Housing, Building, and Construction will have staff at each disaster recovery center to address permitting and inspection questions. Department of Insurance will also have folks there. Department of Revenue staff will also be at the disaster recovery centers today and not in Perry County to answer questions about people's eligibility for sales tax. And that's you can get a sales tax refund for certain repairs and replacements to structures. They'll also be at Breathitt and Letcher counties beginning Wednesday, August 10th, and in Clay County on Thursday, August 11th. Disaster Recovery Center resources. I think we have a slide on this. In some areas, they're being moved around a little bit to put them closer to the people who need them. There's certainly a tension between putting one in an area and being able to advertise it and having it there, and also then trying to move it as close to folks that have lost everything in these neighborhoods. We're just trying to get it right. So here are the centers that are open in Breathitt, Clay, Knott, Letcher, and Perry. And then preparing to open, we're going to have a second Clay, also Floyd, Leslie, Magoffin, Martin, Owsley, Pike, and Whitley counties. These are the addresses, and we will have further updates. Next, the U.S. Small Business Administration announced that Leslie, Magoffin, Martin, and Whitley counties are now included as primary counties in the disaster declaration in eastern Kentucky for severe storms and flooding. Physical disaster loans are now available to businesses and residents in those counties. The disaster declaration covers Breathitt, Clay, Floyd, Knott, Leslie, Letcher, Magoffin, Martin, Owsley, Perry, Pike, and Whitley counties, which are eligible for both physical and economic injury disaster loans from the SBA. Small businesses and most nonprofits are eligible to apply in the adjacent counties are eligible to apply for the economic injury disaster loans. For more information, visit the SBA website. All right, just as a rundown, list of legal actions we've taken. Our goal has been to do everything we can to help. Is my executive order declaring a state of emergency, executive order implementing price gouging prohibitions, request to the president for major disaster declaration and individual assistance, order waiving weight and hour limits on trucks to get supplies to people quicker. President Biden's approval of the major disaster declaration, the Team Eastern Kentucky Flood Relief Fund being created, the EO implementing emergency dispensing of pharmaceuticals, the EO suspending the UI work search and 7-day waiting period, the directive allowing out-of-state electricians to perform work, 14-day grace period for electric inspections, requests to FEMA to add individual assistance to other counties, which we got the yes on, suspension of fees for duplicate driver's license, titles, motor vehicle registrations, travel trailer units that we moved and had to do a couple orders to get them over to the east. Directive to allow HVAC mechanics and plumbers with out-of-state licenses to help. EO suspending certain requirements on disposing of dead livestock. Directive waiving permit and inspection fees for temporary or transition housing resulting from the floods. Request for 100% federal share for public assistance program. We ended up getting 100% for a 30-day period, similar to the tornadoes, for 2 classes of expenses, mainly search and rescue and debris removal. Request for FEMA to implement the clean and sanitize assistance. They said yes. Request to activate critical needs assistance. They said yes. Request to provide direct temporary housing assistance as necessary. I believe they've said yes to that. Again, we have had a yes to just about every major program that we've asked for. Before I open it up to questions, I think our challenges, as they remain, are now to move at least after Wednesday night, when additional raining would stop, from emergency mode to stabilization mode. How do we get people in a safe spot where they can stretch out a little bit, whether that's a room in one of our lodges in the state parks or a travel trailer? How do we address transportation needs that are out there? And then how do we continue to push FEMA to say yes instead of no and help as many of these folks in the long term? It's the rebuilding, permanent housing, these private bridges, all major challenges that we're going to have to address. All right, everybody that we have in terms of journalists are virtual today. Everybody that we have in terms of journalists are virtual today. Looks like we have about 8. We'll start with Tom Latek.
Thank you, Governor, and good morning to you. All those executive orders that you listed here just a couple of minutes ago, are those in effect for only 30 days? Can they be renewed? And if so, how, without having to go to the General Assembly?
So the state of emergency has allowed those executive orders. They can be renewed as long as the state of emergency is in effect. 2 ways for the state of emergency to be extended. One is by the General Assembly, or second is at the request of the county judges of impacted counties. We have done both in the past. City of Marion, for instance, we've done through the county or the mayor requesting. This one will depend on the timing of a special session that I know that we're ultimately going to have. If we have it within the 30-day window, it'll be something we ask the legislature to do, but we're prepared and the county judges are ready to request to extend it as well. So not concerned that we won't be able to extend the orders and the flexibility that we need to respond. John Cheeves.
Thank you, sir. In the months ahead, there's going to be a lot of rebuilding of public buildings, schools and firehouses and other public facilities with public funds. When it's possible, how much thought is being given to getting these places out of the 100-year floodplains that are marked on FEMA maps? I know in some communities it's not possible because there's just not much ground. But when it is possible, how much thought?
Well, I think there should be a lot of thought, but I think you just went through the analysis and the challenges that sometimes those outside the region don't see. There's only so much flat land in these areas where you could place a structure the size of a school or for that matter, to build your home. Part of it in each is, I think, going to be about the level of damage. Certainly, if there is a school that has been wiped out, in other words, we're not going to be able to save even portions of it. And I think we have 3 or 4 of those. We ought to look at least at what the options are. And if there are options there, I'll tell you, John, the superintendents are doing a phenomenal job. Yesterday for the president's briefing, we had the Breathitt and Letcher County superintendents, and they are being real thoughtful right now in the first instance about where they're going to have these kids come in for school when the buildings are not habitable or usable. And I'm really impressed where they are already less than 2 weeks after this. But they're thinking through that same thing too. The disruption of school, of a safe place for these kids, is something none of us have wanted to see. I think all of the local leaders are also now hitting the point where they can take a breath and think about what the future will look like. Certainly in Mayfield, Mayor Onan, after getting out of the emergency period, had a city planner come in, and they really thought about what things would look like moving forward. The same happened in West Liberty about 10 years ago. And certainly even with just the normal flooding that can happen as part of life in these areas, I think when you're spending tens of millions of dollars to rebuild some of these structures, we absolutely have to give thought to it. But you hit it right on the head. Where there's an alternative, and in some instances there just might not be one. Stu Johnson, WEKU.
Thank you, Governor. You have mentioned the word's been possibility of a special session President Stivers. I think the term he used was highly possible. I guess, within, say, a month, is it likely there'll be a special session, say, within the next month?
Yes.
End
All
of
right, Ray
discussion.
Johnson.
Hi, thank you, Governor. You ended your updates with questions like how do we get people to stabilization? And I'm wondering, given the forecast for the next few days, what concerns you might have about imposition to that goal?
Yeah, so the next 2 days are really concerning. And they're the last 2 days for at least a little while. I think we will have enough days right now after tomorrow night where we don't have major rain forecasted, where we could potentially be out of the woods. Certainly, if we can get through tomorrow night without major flooding, we'll be able to allow some of the federal search and rescue folks to go home. I mean, they've now been helping us for a while. But the next 2 days are of significant concern. Folks have been through too much. And listen, a lot of people are trying to stay in or around their homes where we know it flooded, and there could potentially be heavy rainfall in these areas. My concern over the next couple days is that everybody is safe. We already lost an 18-year-old in the cleanup. We don't want to lose anybody else at all. And so whether it's taking care of yourself during that period or making sure you get to a safe place, the next 2 days are going to be concerning. But again, once we get through tomorrow night, right now after 8, we ought to be able to, as long as we haven't seen more widespread flooding or damage, we ought to really be able to move into that stabilization phase. But we're watching the news almost, we're watching the weather almost hour by hour until then. Morella Porter. From WKRC Local 12. We'll come back. Bria Jones, WFPL.
Thank you, Governor. How has it been getting the communications back up, like with cell phones and stuff? I know that has been like a ongoing issue, especially in those more rural areas, to get those temporary towers up in those areas. Do we have any updates on the progress with that?
Yeah, we think it's back up. Now there are going to be some pockets, but we believe that cell phone service has been restored to the level that it was at prior to the flooding. That took a lot of people doing a whole lot of work, and certainly what we've learned now over 2 major disasters. This is one of the first things you've got to get up. Once you do, you get a better idea about how many people you're missing and how many you've lost. Cell phone service would definitely be on my top 3 list when you look at what you have to restore immediately after getting hit by something like this. Lee Searcy, WLEX.
Yes, thank you. This is a can FEMA do more question. Yesterday, we met a Jackson couple whose newly purchased home flooded before they could even move in. They closed on it literally 6 days before the floods. FEMA denied their request for help because they were not living in the home at the time of the damage. Do you believe that FEMA could do more to help them? And what is your advice to this couple, Katie Turner and Dustin Turner? They really feel abandoned.
Yes, I think FEMA can and should do more to help everybody. This is what FEMA is supposed to be there for folks that are wiped out, for folks that without it can't get back on their feet. This is the federal government. They print money, and we're not talking about all that much. In fact, the president yesterday said even the FEMA limit wasn't enough to get people back on their feet. I'm hoping that is going to spark a change, and every day either I or my general counsel or somebody else is having a conversation with FEMA where now is the time to change the culture. Now is the time to get away from no to helping the people who desperately need it. I believe that this is the natural disaster where we are going to see, is FEMA going to get it right? Or is it going to be an example where people are excited when they come in, but even more deflated when they leave? Now, I am seeing FEMA do things here that they've never done before. And every time we see one of those, that's a good thing. That's being willing to open up people's claims again at the mobile registration site. And they've told us that everybody denied is going to get a call from their national office. But the next thing we've got to see is them saying yes in instances where they may have said no in the past, provided that they have the statutory or regulatory authority to do so. I do want to say that Congress has put different parameters on FEMA. They probably can't go beyond those, but all the way up to what they're allowed to say yes to, they ought to be saying yes. And if they can go a little bit further with authority that they may have, they ought to be doing that too. I heard about this couple as well, and it's awful. I mean, it's just awful. And it's just like a young family I met at Buckhorn. And I mean, they had put $150,000 into their home over a period of years. And they were showing me pictures, and it was beautiful inside. Now, sometimes people may come with a prejudice about what the inside of a single wide can look like. It's beautiful. They had built a real home for their family. And now, 4 feet up, it's green with mold all the way through it. They deserve help. Whether they're in, nobody can afford flood insurance where they were, and this is an area that doesn't flood. They deserve help, and I hope that FEMA gets it right. And I will tell you, even in my comments that I made yesterday with the president right there, we said we were grateful for everybody being here and doing things differently, but FEMA has to get this right. I'm gonna keep pushing because my only team here is Team Kentucky, and I'm gonna keep pushing for as many people to get a yes from FEMA as possible. That's one of my primary missions. All right, going back, do we have Morella Porter? All right, we will get her question in writing. We'll have our next update, I believe, on Thursday. One of the things that we'll want to do on Thursday is to talk about where we started and where we are now. Look at those power numbers and those water outages. And the reason I want to do that is I believe that we have a lot of work in front of us. And this is going to be one of the most difficult rebuilding efforts that the country has ever seen. But what's been done in a 2-week period in terms of infrastructure and sheltering and the rest, I believe is one of the best responses that this country has ever seen. And I want to make sure our leaders on the ground and at the EOC, that you all can see how hard they've worked. If we can take that same effort and that same creativity, because we've done things we've never done before, and we can put that into the potential rebuilding, looking for new ideas and new solutions. Is it building a new neighborhood in an area and how we could make that available to folks? Is it changes in the FEMA buyout program for those that are willing? The way the program's set up right now, probably not going to work in most of these areas. But what I can promise people is we'll be relentless in my office and throughout state government, and I believe the legislature will be too, in fighting for you to get everything we can out of the federal government. But listen, we are working with the legislature on getting legislation ready for a special session where we can provide assistance, especially to our cities and counties. And when a family would say, what does that mean for me? It means your water bill is not going to go up at a time when you're already struggling because of the massive amounts of dollars it's going to take to rebuild that water system. It means that we can get your kids' school rebuilt and up and running faster. And if we do it right without raising your property tax, that's something that we're going to have to help fix in Western Kentucky, but I think that we can get that done. We're going to be here for you, and we're still there for the families in the West each and every day, doing everything we can to help people who are in an unfair isn't even close to the right word. I don't have one that captures, I think, what's happened to these folks. But we are Kentuckians, and we're going to stand next to you long after everybody else has left. We're still going to be there. Thank you all very much.